Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we plunge into the heart of complex stories, extracting the most vital nuggets of insight for you. Today, we're navigating a really high-profile case, one that's captured public attention for decades. It's a story many thought was closed, completely settled, but it has just taken a dramatic, really unexpected turn.
Indeed. We're talking about Eric and Lyle Menendez.
Yeah.
I mean, this case has resonated through popular culture in so many ways, right? From legal discussions to primetime TV dramas.
Absolutely.
And the sources we've gathered today, looking at recent reports from places like CNN, AP, ABC News, BBC, Al Jazeera, plus some YouTube transcripts, they give us a pretty unprecedented look at these latest developments.
Yeah, so our mission today is really to unpack the details, the intricacies of their recent resentencing. We want to explore the factors that actually led to this pivotal decision and, understand what this means for their future and maybe even for the broader conversation around justice and rehabilitation. It's a story with just so many layers, and we're going to try and help you navigate every single one. Okay, let's dive right in. Let's start with the bombshell ruling. This came down on May 13th, 2025.
Right.
Los Angeles County Superior Court Judge Michael Jessic resentenced Eric and Lyle Menendez. He fundamentally shifted their term from life without the possibility of parole.
Which everyone thought was set in stone.
Exactly. To a new sentence of 50 years to life. That's just a massive change for a case that feels so fixed in our collective memory.
It really is.
Yeah.
And the immediate impact of that decision is, it's profound. This ruling makes them eligible for parole right now, today.
Right now.
After serving 35 years behind bars.
Yeah.
This isn't some distant possibility years down the line. It's a current, active reality that could potentially be released relatively soon.
Wow.
It's a monumental shift. Like you said, for a case that felt cemented in legal history, the public perception was always life without parole meant exactly that. No way out.
And the judge, he didn't really hold back in his reasoning, did he?
No, not at all.
He acknowledged right up front that a horrific crime was committed. He wasn't trying to diminish the gravity of what they did. But then, and this is where it gets really interesting, where the landscape truly shifts, he expressed genuine shock, his word, at the remarkable things the brothers have accomplished while in prison.
And he specifically cited letters from corrections officers themselves, not just family or their defense lawyers.
That carries weight.
It really does.
Yeah.
It lends significant weight to his assessment of their transformation. Now, he was careful. He clarified he wasn't suggesting immediate release.
Okay.
But he stressed that, quote, one day they should get that chance. So it's not a get-out-of-jail-free card. It's an opening, a judicial recognition that maybe undeniable personal transformation can occur even after the most severe crimes.
It really raises that provocative question, doesn't it? At what point does society or the justice system begin to recognize genuine rehabilitation, even for acts that once seemed, well, unforgivable?
And this brings us to a really crucial element of that resentencing hearing. What did the brothers themselves actually say in court? What might have provided such a powerful impression?
Right, because they appeared remotely, didn't they?
Yeah, both Eric and Lyle appeared via video link from their respective prisons. And what really stood out was their unanimous decision to take full responsibility for their actions. This wasn't them trying to relitigate their innocence or shift blame. It seemed more like a direct acknowledgement of their guilt, though, still framed within the context of their long-standing defense.
You could really feel the immense weight of their words during those statements. Eric Menendez said, with what sounded like clear remorse, that he committed an atrocious act against two people who had every right to live, my mom and dad.
That's powerful phrasing.
It is. He went on to unequivocally declare there was no excuse for his behavior and that he created a crushing sadness for his family.
That doesn't sound like someone being defensive, right? It sounds like a profound admission of culpability.
And then he vowed to never stop trying to make a difference whether I am inside or outside of prison. That signals a commitment to a rehabilitative path, regardless of whether he gets out or not.
It speaks to maybe a matured understanding of the ripple effects of his actions, far beyond just the initial crime itself.
And Lyle, what did he say?
Lyle Menendez, he too admitted to the killings. He articulated that he was immature and filled with rage at the time. His words sort of offered a glimpse into his internal state back then. He explicitly stated, had I trusted others to help me, I wouldn't have committed these crimes. That speaks to a deep sense of regret, maybe, for missed opportunities for intervention.
A recognition of other paths he could have taken?
Exactly. But he also reiterated that striking claim, the one that's been central to their defense all along. I didn't think anyone would believe me about my sexual abuse.
Still maintaining that core element.
Absolutely. It directly ties into their original legal strategy. It's been a consistent thread for decades. And much like his brother, he expressed a desire to continue to serve sexual abuse victims if he were released.
So potentially signaling a path for future contribution using his experience somehow.
That seems to be the implication.
Hmm.
This thread of alleged abuse, it's remained remarkably consistent and continues to frame their narrative and their legal appeals.
You can feel the profound weight of those words, especially after so many years of, well, relative silence and tons of speculation. Their defense attorney, Mark Garagos, later echoed that sentiment outside the courthouse. He stated unequivocally redemption is possible and that today is a great day after 35 years.
Sounded pretty confident.
Yeah, he seemed deeply confident, believing they're one huge step closer to bringing the boys home.
So for those of you listening, maybe you've followed this case for years, or maybe you're just discovering it now, this dramatic shift must feel truly astounding.
Oh, absolutely. It makes you wonder, what exactly led us to this point after so many years? What happened in those initial days that set the stage for such a long, complex legal battle? And what has kept this case in the public eye for so long?
To really grasp the gravity and just how unexpected this resentencing is, we have to rewind. We have to go back to the beginning, to the night of August 20, 1989.
Right.
That's when Jose and Kitty Menendez lost their lives. It was a brutal incident in their, well, lavish Beverly Hills mansion. Lyle was 21 at the time. Eric was just 18.
And this wasn't just any crime, was it? It was high profile from the absolute get-go. Drew national attention because of the family's prominence, Jose's role in the entertainment industry.
Exactly. Jose Menendez, he was a Cuban immigrant who'd risen to become this powerful music and film executive.
Right.
He was heading RCA Records at the time, responsible for huge artists like Duran Duran, Aretha Franklin.
Wow.
And his wife, Kitty, she was a former beauty queen, a homemaker, apparently known for her meticulous attention to detail and her devotion to the family's public image.
So a very prominent, wealthy family. And the investigation into the scene itself revealed some grim, really chilling details.
Yeah. Detectives described finding Jose and Kitty in their living room. They'd sustained multiple shotgun blasts, point-blank range.
And the prosecution, they laid out the sequence pretty meticulously during the trials, didn't they?
They did. Jose was shot through the back of the head, apparently as he lay on the sofa. Kitty, tragically, was shot point-blank in the cheek while she was reportedly still alive,
Oh, terrible.
begging for her life.
Yeah.
And then, disturbingly, shot through the kneecaps after she had already passed away.
That detail, the post-mortem aspect, that suggests something beyond just killing, right? A level of rage or something else.
It shocked even seasoned investigators.
Hmm.
The scene was so brutal, so almost meticulously executed in its violence that initial responders actually thought it was the work of the mob.
Like a professional hit.
Exactly. A hit designed to send a message.
Huh?
Gives you a stark sense of the sheer force and calculated intent behind the acts.
So, from the prosecution's perspective, their original argument was pretty straightforward, right? It was all about money.
Pure greed, essentially. That was their narrative.
Okay.
They contended the brothers acted out of malicious intent, specifically to get control of their parents' substantial multi-million-dollar inheritance.
Which was estimated around $14 million back then.
Yeah, around $14 million, which would be well over $30 million today.
Oh.
Jose's vast fortune and powerful position were highlighted as the primary motive. It painted the brothers as cold, calculating, driven by avarice.
But then the defense countered with this claim that has always been at the absolute heart of this case. It's profoundly complicated it for many people, and frankly, it shifted the public conversation around abuse and trauma. That the brothers acted in self-defense, driven to a breaking point after years of alleged sexual abuse by their father, Jose.
With their mother, Kitty, supposedly enabling the behavior and emotionally abusing them as well.
Right. This introduced a deeply troubling, really human element that directly challenged that simple greed narrative. It forced a much more uncomfortable discussion about what might have really been happening inside the Menendez household.
In that perspective, the claim of chronic abuse, it quickly became central to understanding, or at least trying to understand, the brothers' actions. Lyle himself, as we mentioned, later said he didn't think anyone would believe me about my sexual abuse.
Highlighting that perceived lack of recourse, maybe feeling trapped.
Exactly, which, according to the defense, fueled their desperate and ultimately tragic actions. This raises that persistent question. Why didn't this profound, disturbing claim fully hold sway in the initial trials? Why did it lead to conviction, and what's changed since then?
It's also incredible how quickly they crafted a narrative, a false one, immediately after the incident. Detectives discovered the brothers made that chilling 911 call.
Feigning shock and grief.
Right. Eric was reportedly found bawling on the front lawn, appearing totally distraught, traumatized. It led the initial officers to believe they were genuinely victims of some horrific external crime.
That initial presentation of grief, combined with, maybe some acting skills. Eric was known for drama at Beverly Hills High. It was a powerful, if ultimately misleading factor early on. It diverted suspicion.
And they had an alibi ready, too, didn't they?
Oh, yeah, pre-planned alibi. Claimed they'd been to see the movie Batman, then went to a food festival, came home sometime before midnight to discover the bodies.
And Lyle even mentions smelling shotgun smoke.
Right, catching a distinct whiff of shotgun smoke upon entering the house. A detail that experts later said was forensically inconsistent. Shotgun smoke wouldn't linger for hours like that, especially in a ventilated house.
Suggesting the alibi was fabricated?
And what's particularly stunning is that because of their seemingly believable trauma, their convincing performance, police didn't even test them for gunshot residue at the time.
Wow, that seems like a major oversight.
It was. It's a standard procedure. One account even described how they managed to basically lie and cry their way out of trouble that first night. A testament to their calculation.
And then came the spending, the sheer extravagance that followed their parents' passing. It was impossible to ignore. For many, it just completely undermined their claims of trauma.
Definitely painted a picture of callous disregard instead. In just the first 6 or 7 months after their parents passed away, it's estimated they blew through a staggering $1 million
$1 million.
of their inheritance.
Oh.
And this wasn't just, paying bills. It was a lavish spree. High-stakes gambling in Vegas, high-end hotel rooms, luxury condos in Marina del Rey.
3 Rolex watches.
3 Rolex watches, a $40,000 shopping spree on designer clothes. Lyle bought a $64,000 gray Porsche Carrera. Eric got a new Jeep Wrangler and hired a $60,000 a year tennis coach.
To pursue his pro-athlete dream.
Right. And Lyle, in maybe the most audacious move, reportedly spent over $550,000 on a failing New Jersey restaurant called Chubby's and invested $40,000 in some LA rock concert.
That level of spending so soon after such a horrific event, it definitely raised eyebrows and fueled that prosecution greed motive.
Absolutely. And this leads us to a really crucial piece of evidence that surfaced later and became incredibly damning. It hinted at a darker, perhaps premeditated motive.
The screenplay.
Exactly. It was revealed that Eric and his tennis friend had, back in 1988, a full year before the crime, co-written this 60-plus page screenplay called Friends.
And the plot.
The script featured a wealthy teenager named was Hamilton Cromwell, who, driven by a desire for his inheritance, loses his temper and kills his parents.
Chilling. The parallels are just undeniable.
Incredibly chilling for the defense. It presented this shocking foresight, suggesting maybe the idea of parricide for financial gain had been simmering in Eric's mind long before the actual events.
That screenplay must have been a linchpin for the prosecutors.
Oh, it was. They argued it demonstrated premeditation and a motive rooted in material gain, not self-defense.
So the initial legal proceedings, those were a spectacle, weren't they? Broadcast live, captivating the nation.
Truly. The first trials in 1994, which did focus heavily on those abuse allegations, actually resulted in hung juries for both brothers.
Meaning the jurors couldn't agree.
Couldn't reach a unanimous verdict on guilt or innocence, which was surprising given the evidence of their culpability. It really highlighted the power of those conflicting narratives, the brutal crime versus the disturbing abuse claims. The juries just struggled to reconcile them.
And those hung juries led to mistrials, forcing the prosecution to basically start over.
Right. Then in 1996, a retrial took place, this time with a single jury, streamlining things. And a significant difference was the prosecution deliberately placed less emphasis on the abuse allegations.
Focusing more on the financial motive and the calculation.
Exactly. And notably, cameras were banned from the courtroom this time.
Removing the media circus element.
Pretty much. This shift also happened while another massive trial, the O.J. Simpson case, was dominating the headlines, drawing some attention away.
Interesting timing.
Ultimately, on March 20, 1996, they were both convicted. First-degree murder. But they were spared the death penalty.
Receiving the 2 consecutive life sentences without parole instead.
That was the sentence. And it seemed to seal their fate for good, or at least that's what everyone thought, until this shocking resentencing just happened.
So for 35 years, they've been incarcerated, living behind prison walls. Initially, they were in the same facility, is that right?
Yes, for a time, but later they were separated. Eric ended up at Folsom State Prison, north of Sacramento, and Lyle at Mule Creek State Prison, which geographically wasn't that far.
But they couldn't communicate.
Almost entirely cut off. There was a strict mandate preventing them from talking to each other, living their own isolated worlds for decades. The idea was to prevent any further collusion or coordination between them.
Despite that isolation, despite the harsh realities of prison, their time behind bars has become this really significant, undeniably powerful factor in the recent resentencing.
It really has. Their behavior, their accomplishments within the prison system, they've been described as remarkable. Eric, for instance, founded at least 5 distinct prison programs.
5 programs. That's extraordinary.
It shows a real commitment to service. These included things like a vital support group for disabled and elderly inmates, providing comfort and practical help. He was also involved in hospice care, offering dignity to fellow inmates in their final days.
Wow. And Lyle.
Lyle spearheaded what was called a massive beautification program. He raised over $250,000,
$250,000 from inside prison.
a staggering sum for an inmate. He used it to install greenery, build fountains, create more serene spaces within the prison yard, trying to make a harsh environment feel a bit more like the outside world.
What's genuinely striking there is the consistent, tangible effort they put into creating positive change within a system designed purely for punishment. That clearly impressed Judge Jessic.
It seems to have profoundly impressed him.
And what's really compelling is the impact they've apparently had on others, even people outside the prison walls. That goes beyond typical rehabilitation efforts, doesn't it?
It does. Consider the testimony of Jonathan Colby, a retired Florida judge. He'd never testified for a criminal defendant before.
Never.
He openly spoke about how his own views on inmate rehabilitation completely transformed after witnessing the Menendez brothers' growth and their commitment to helping others. He admitted he used to believe only in punishment, but because of their example, he now champions rehabilitation. And then there's Aneri X-Rated Brown, a rapper who was formerly incarcerated.
Okay.
He credited the Menendez brothers' help for his own successful release and reintegration. He reportedly wept while testifying about the emotional and spiritual support they gave him, helping him heal from his own traumas.
That speaks volumes, doesn't it, about their potential for genuine positive influence.
It really indicates a capacity for tangible contribution.
And throughout these decades, their family, what remained of it, has consistently stood by them.
Unwavering support. Cousins like Anna Maria Baralt and Diane Hernandez have been particularly vocal, maintaining contact, advocating for their release.
Brawl testified that the family has universally forgiven them.
Yes, a powerful statement suggesting a collective belief in their transformation and maybe the validity of those abuse claims. She emphasized they are very different men now, highlighting a remarkable change.
That sustained family support over such a long time, it's a testament to something.
It certainly serves as a powerful testament to their belief in the brothers' rehabilitation and in those long-denied allegations that shaped their lives.
And Diane Hernandez, the cousin who lived with them, she provided some chilling testimony about the alleged abuse, didn't she?
She did. She described Jose's deeply unsettling hallway rule,
How was that?
a strict, isolating decree where supposedly no one else was allowed on the same floor of the house when Jose was alone with the boys. It created this isolated, fearful environment that allegedly enabled abuse to happen undetected.
God, that sounds awful.
She detailed how Jose intimidated and terrorized the whole household, creating this atmosphere of constant fear and control that went beyond just the boys. It impacted everyone living there.
And this perspective, while heavily contested, has been a consistent part of the defense argument for years, painting this picture of a deeply dysfunctional, abusive home.
Exactly, allegedly molding the brothers' actions.
However, the current Los Angeles County District Attorney, Nathan Hochman, he's fiercely opposed their resentencing, right? Maintaining a very resolute stance against release.
Absolutely. He has publicly argued they haven't come clean with the full extent of their criminal conduct, their cover-up, their lies, and their deceit.
So his point is that true remorse requires a complete, unvarnished admission of everything, not just the parts that fit their narrative.
That seems to be the core of his contention. He suggests their continued partial admission undermines their claims of full transformation. He believes genuine rehabilitation requires full accountability for every aspect.
And he doubled down, didn't he, calling the self-defense claim a complete fabrication.
Yes, he meticulously built his argument, pointing back to the pre-planned alibi, the deliberate purchase of shotguns just 2 days before,
Right.
and the undeniably gruesome nature of the acts, which he asserted was designed to look like a mafia killing to divert suspicion. He emphasized that for 30 years, they haven't fully admitted the truth as the prosecution sees it.
And he drew that parallel to Sirhan.
He did. The man convicted of taking Robert F. Kennedy's life. Hochman argued that despite Sirhan's own reported rehabilitation efforts, a lack of complete insight and full confession remains a significant barrier to parole or resentencing.
Basically saying some crimes demand a deeper level of accountability regardless of time served or behavior.
That underscores the DA's position perfectly.
So this raises an important question again. What new evidence has emerged? Something compelling enough that the previous DA, George Gascon, actually recommended resentencing in the first place.
Well, one significant piece is a previously unrevealed letter. Eric wrote it to his cousin back in 1993 while he was awaiting trial. In this letter, Eric explicitly detailed his father's sexual abuse when Eric was 17. It provided a direct, contemporaneous account from one of the brothers that wasn't widely known or fully used in the initial trials, a raw, unfiltered glimpse into his alleged trauma.
And then there was the testimony from the Menudo member.
Yes, Roy Rossello, a former member of that popular 80s boy band, Menudo. He publicly revealed in a 2023 documentary series that Jose Menendez had sexually assaulted him when Rossello was a young performer under Jose's management.
Wow. That's huge. Coming from outside the family, an unrelated source.
Exactly. It provided significant corroboration for those long-standing allegations against Jose. These revelations have profoundly impacted public perception, fueled renewed calls for release, especially with all the recent media attention from Netflix and documentaries.
Bringing the case right back into the spotlight. And then there's that curious detail about Lyle's toupee.
Yes. The seemingly minute but deeply symbolic detail. Sources indicate his mother, Kitty, allegedly pulled it off during a heated argument just days before she passed away.
Humiliating him.
Deeply humiliating. And this incident reportedly led Eric to finally confide in Lyle about their father's alleged abuse, seeing Lyle's vulnerability maybe as an opening.
And the wig itself was convincing.
Apparently very convincing. Nobody suspected a man in his early 20s would be bald. He maintained that image of perfection expected of them. The truth only became widely known years later when another inmate reportedly knocked it off in the prison shower.
Revealing that hidden vulnerability. She was only allowed to wear it in court, right? Not in prison.
That's right. This seemingly trivial detail, revealed in such an intimate context, it offers a rare glimpse into the intense pressures, the manufactured image the family maintains.
It's just even small things could be sources of shame or control in that household.
Exactly. Hinting at the broader psychological landscape, the layers of hidden truths. It's a small detail, but it offers a powerful lens into a much larger, complex family history of control and secrets.
Okay, so the judge has made them eligible for parole. Sentence reduced to 50 years to life. But, and this is crucial, it doesn't mean they're walking free immediately, does it?
Not at all. This resentencing is a huge first step, yes, but it's just one part of a much more complex, multi-layered process. There are several distinct hurdles still ahead.
They're definitely not just heading home tomorrow.
No, the road ahead is still fraught with challenges. The next critical hurdle is the California State Parole Board. They'll conduct an extensive review.
And there's already a hearing scheduled.
Yes, for June 13th. It was part of a separate bid the brothers initiated even before this resentencing. The parole board now has over 100 days to meticulously review their entire file.
Everything. The original crime, behavior in prison, rehabilitation efforts.
Everything. Statements made over 35 years. They'll weigh victim statements, prosecution arguments, the brothers' own testimony and records. It's an in-depth, deliberative review to assess their current suitability for release, not a quick rubber stamp.
And even if the parole board, after all that, does approve their release, which is a big if, right, given the case,
A significant if.
the ultimate decision still rests with California Governor Gavin Newsom.
That's correct. He then has at least 2 months to weigh in after getting the board's recommendation. He can affirm it and grant parole, he can deny it, or interestingly, he can just do nothing.
And if he does nothing,
Then the board's decision holds. So multiple levels of scrutiny still to pass, each with its own political and legal considerations.
and this risk assessment that Governor Newsom ordered, that plays a big role, presumably?
A huge role. It will heavily influence both the parole board and the governor. The state parole board already conducted this comprehensive risk assessment.
And the finding?
Its findings indicate that the brothers would pose a moderate risk of violence if released.
Moderate risk.
While the full report isn't public, that finding is certainly significant. Public safety is paramount. It's one of the key points the current DA, Nathan Hochman, is using in his opposition.
And Hochman also pointed to those recent disciplinary issues, didn't he? The cell phone violations.
Yes, very recent ones that occurred while this resentencing effort was underway. Lyle had one in November 2024. Eric in January 2025.
Not great timing.
No. The DA stressed Eric's violation happened when he should have been on his absolute best behavior, knowing his freedom was potentially on the line.
So the prosecution sees these as signs they haven't fully reformed. Or aren't entirely honest.
Exactly. It adds another layer of challenge, undermining their claims of complete transformation and rule adherence.
Beyond the parole process, are they pursuing other legal avenues too?
Yes, in parallel.
Okay.
They're still seeking clemency directly from Governor Newsom.
Yeah.
That's an executive order that could allow immediate release, bypassing the parole board entirely.
Okay.
And they've also filed a habeas petition for a new trial.
A habeas petition. What's
Right.
that exactly?
It's basically a legal tool to challenge a conviction, arguing that new evidence or fundamental legal errors make their imprisonment unlawful. This particular petition is based specifically on that new evidence of alleged abuse, the letter, Rosilla's testimony.
So distinct efforts, but all aimed at potential freedom.
Correct. Each with its own complexities and potential outcomes.
And it's incredible how public and media attention seems to have played a role here. That Netflix drama, Monsters, other documentaries.
They've absolutely fueled renewed interest and significantly calls for their release. You've had high-profile figures like Kim Kardashian, Rosie O'Donnell weighing in, advocating for them.
Raising awareness about the abuse claims.
And this public momentum undoubtedly played a role in the previous DA, George Gascon, taking that unprecedented step of recommending resentencing last fall.
Which really opened the door for what just happened. Shows the power of shifting public perception.
Definitely.
So, timeline-wise, best case scenario.
Yeah.
What are we looking at for a final decision on release?
Given all these stages, the parole board review, the governor's decision period, the parallel legal efforts, best case scenario, you're probably talking a couple months for a final decision.
Not days or weeks, then.
No, definitely not. The parole board alone has over 100 days, and then the governor has his timeline. It's a highly deliberative, scrutinized process, especially for a case this huge. It takes time.
So, the path to freedom. After 35 years, it's clearer than ever before. A tangible hope that seemed impossible. But, like we've explored, still fraught with challenges, further scrutiny. The journey is far from over.
Far from over. Hashtag tag outro.
So, where does this leave us? What does it all mean? The Menendez brothers case, it just keeps unfolding, keeps challenging our perceptions of justice, punishment, and rehabilitation. It really forces us to confront these fundamental questions about how our evolving societal understandings, particularly around childhood trauma, complex family dynamics, how those interact with the legal system, how they shape our collective sense of what's just.
It raises that important, maybe deeply philosophical question for society, doesn't it? If individuals can demonstrate such profound transformation, such consistent positive impact while incarcerated like the Menendez brothers reportedly have, how should society balance that against the immutable severity of their past crimes?
Right.
Where is that line truly drawn between the need for punishment and recognizing someone's capacity for fundamental change?
It leaves you with this provocative thought, maybe. In a world that's striving for both accountability and second chances, what truly constitutes a debt paid to society? And maybe more importantly, who gets to decide when someone has genuinely been rehabilitated? When are they ready to re-enter the world? Thank you for deep diving with us today.